Hey everybody, welcome back to tutorial number 20 to Introduction to Charting in the Behavioral Sciences. In the last tutorial, we put some of the core elements we would need to our overall multi-plot figure, which is a multiple baseline. But we didn't yet get to introduce some of the styling that's common in single case research. So before we go any further into styling this plot, let's take care of the fonts. If we click on this overall figure and go to our traditional spot, which is by home, we'll see that we can change the fonts. We'll change out the Times New Roman, and we will increase that font to 12. Then what we could do is we could change out the black like normal. Right now what you'll see is it changed it, but only for the parent plot, the plot that we built this on. You'll see at this very top one, which is the first one we started with, the fonts changed. But the individual subplots, they each need to be adjusted individually because they have their own behavior in this overall figure. So I'm just going to scoot over this axis because of the size change in the font, and then I'm just going to repeat the same font change in this child plot by going to Format. Well, actually, I think we have to click on the individual components here. There we go. Yeah, let's click the overall big figure. We'll select Times New Roman. We'll increase the size. And there we are. And we'll just slide this axis over, and then we'll change the color. There we go. And we're going to do the same thing for the last plot. I'm going to select the entire thing, change the font to Times New Roman, increase the size to 12, change that color to black. And we're going to scoot this axis over because of the size change. Now that we don't really need any of these extra gray grid, we're just going to individually select these and then press delete. And we'll do that for each individual plot. Before we go any further, we're going to style some of these axes first. Maybe I'll make this plot a little bit bigger. Yeah. Add some extra space I can move. So we're going to go into this vertical axis. I'm going to right click it. I'm going to format it. And what we'll do is we'll go into line and we'll tell Excel, let's make this a black line. All right, that looks pretty good. We're going to go into this figure. We're going to format that axis. We'll go to the paintbrush or paint bucket. Go to line, hit solid, make that black. And we'll repeat that for this bottom axis. Right click, format, paint bucket, line, solid, make it black. That's probably the only thing we have to do other than maybe just making sure all your axes are lined up pretty well. For the x-axis, since we only really need the numbers on the bottom one, we're gonna treat the individual plots a little bit differently. I'm just going to resize these a little bit so they look a little bit closer. I'm just eyeballing it. For this bottom axis, I'm going to right click on it. Just like before, I'm going to tell Excel that I really want my unit to be in the ones. So I'm going to change my units to 1. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add tick marks. And I want to add a tick mark every 1. So on the major type, I'm going to say for ticks, on the major type, let's do them inside. And then we see we have these tick marks right above the numbers. Now the only thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the paintbrush, and for lines, I'm going to change this to black. And that's going to change both this bottom line and the color of those tick marks. Alright, that looks pretty good. Now I'm going to go to this next subplot. I'm going to right click on Format Axis. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the units again to 1. I'm going to add my tick marks to on the inside. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off the labels. So I'm going to go to Labels to None. Now I'll go over that in a sec. For now, I want to take that line. So click Solid Line and turn it to black. So we see we have this shared kind of grid, but we only really have the numbers at the very bottom. Since the reader's kind of going to know that that first tick aligns with that other first tick, we maybe don't need to have that number under each plot. It's just one of those things that it just may make it easier on the reader that they're not having to reread the same information over and over. We're going to do the same thing for this top plot. We'll right click on Format Axis. We'll go to our units. We'll change that to 1. We'll go to our tick marks. At our major type, we will do inside. And for our labels, for the position, we're going to say none. Like before, we're going to go to our paint bucket. We're going to go to Solid Line. We're going to hit Color, and we're going to make that black. So right now, what we see is a handful of plots that are starting to look very similar. They look like they all share a common x-axis and a common type of y-axis. And what we could do is, actually, to make this a little bit clearer, we can go to this first plot, and instead of deleting this axis, which may, change up the size, we're just going to tell Excel, just make this white, the same as the background. So it's still there, but we don't have to see it. And we're going to do the same thing for the bottom. So we'll click on this bottom axis title, and we'll select that, and we'll change that to white as well. And then now what we're starting to see is this overall figure has 3 subplots, and we could tweak with the size a little bit so they look kind of equal. But it looks like they all share the same y-axis type and the same x-axis. So it really starts to look like it's an overall single type of chart where everything is very similar. So right now we're starting to stitch together our plots. In the next tutorial, we're going to begin styling the individual lines, adding our phase changes, and then exploring ways to stitch them together in a way that we could update and resize without having to totally redraw everything from scratch. So stay tuned to the website, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you guys in the next one.